Andrea Pam, welcome guys. Okay, the cool thing I really want to share, like I've just been talking about with you guys, is I'm excited to be launching the podcast. I'm excited to launch the podcast. I'm excited what this group is doing. If you aren't familiar, in a few weeks we're doing the Grow to Give, the Grow to Give business workshop. That's been really cool because I've been looking at different creative ways of adding contribution and giving and service and making a difference into this community. And you guys are just all on board. You're all on board with doing that, all on board with your mission, your purpose. And it's just been so cool to see that people are willing to jump on for a workshop. It's going to go for 2 hours. We're going to have 2 guest speakers. I'm going to do some stuff with you as well. And we're doing it in a way that's supporting children in Vietnam, children who have been saved from slavery and from trafficking, and being able to provide them with meals and with rice and bowls that are nutritious for them. So far, we've raised almost, I think it's close to 4,000 bowls of rice for these children who are found themselves in tough circumstances. So that's incredible so far, with plenty more people yet to jump on and make their contribution. So it's going to be exciting to see where we take that, where it goes. And I'm just focusing on adding value for you guys in that workshop. So that's going to be exciting moving forward. The podcast is going to be incredible. Like we were saying, Andrea Diaz in the group is doing my logo, and I've already recorded 2 episodes. I'll do another 2 today, and I'll choose a platform that I'm gonna use and provide that. But it's going to be really, really cool. It's going to be awesome for you guys to have this type of content, do the exercises, create some internal shifts with really with a cool platform of just listening to it in a podcast wherever you may be. So I'm excited to do that for you guys, and I'm excited to see where it will go. Obviously, if you're watching this is the time where you connect, right? You sit down, you do some work, and you do some deep inner connection. So I thought I'd share what's going on with me. I've been doing some meditations, some deep meditations, doing sometimes 3 hours a day, and doing a lot of the inner stuff. And one thing that's coming up for me that's been a really big shift is noticing where there's ego, where ego is coming up for me, right? So where you notice ego is basically the ego attaches itself to 2 forms, right? Superiority and also identification. So you can notice ego whenever you start to feel yourself wanting to be better than other people, more superior, more, better than, or, more significant. We all know what that feels like. But also insignificant. When are the times when you feel insignificant, when you feel like you're the victim, where you feel like life's happening to you, right? All these aspects of the ego, but also in times when you're identified with something, where you basically have an identification of who I am is my money, who I am is my business, who I am is my success, who I am is whatever, my relationships. So I've been noticing a lot of times when there's basically 2 things I'm going through. One is I know a lot of you are going to say, how the hell is that a problem? But doing the inner work of not being attached to money, because I've been doing this work and in my business is growing, and it's actually been a stretch for me to accept the level of abundance that I'm getting externally. So it's been a challenge to my current story to accept $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 in a month. That's been a challenge. It's been death to my story, because I've been doing the inner work of receiving that level of income without ego. As soon as I receive more income, as soon as I get clients that I'm proud of, I feel my ego. I feel a side of me wanting to go out and wanting to show that off and talk about it and almost boast about it. So it's a bit of a weird internal challenge to have where I noticed my ego being attached to my money, being attached to the success, right? And doing that work to realize that that has nothing to do with me. In fact, it's my job to stay in flow, and whatever happens externally is just part of it's. I almost delegate that to the universe. And being in that space of man, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure where I should be, how I should think about this, right? So that's where I've been really doing the work. And because of the internal freedom I feel, the universe, the external circumstances, it just has to respond. I'm sure you guys have figured this out, that your external world will just basically manifest what you already feel inside. So if you feel insecure, you're going to basically, the world is going to show you insecure moments until you get that lesson, until you notice and love that 5-year-old that feels insecure. So one thing that I'd love to highlight, one thing that would be beneficial for you is notice where you feel your ego. You feel the ego coming up. Now, the ego is not wrong. It's just unconscious. I've been learning a lot about this from Eckhart Tolle and all these books I'm reading. Is just the ego is unconscious. So where can you notice your ego? Where can you notice where you feel like if this happened, I would feel more significant to myself or to others? Or where can you notice you identifying circumstances or things or yourself with who you are? Who I am is this body, right? Who I am is this relationship, this bank account. Who I am is this role of a wife, a husband, a daughter, a business owner, whatever it may be. Where can you notice that? Where can you notice that you're being identified, and where can you notice that there are some things that may make you feel more significant? Because what I've found is that when you break away that story, it gives yourself freedom to receive that thing. I'm breaking away the stories I have around money and feeling just as free, just as much internal freedom and security and abundance, depending if I make $0 or if I make 30 grand. So feeling that internally offers so much freedom here. Therefore, my circumstances I'm finding myself receiving at a higher level. Is this resonating with you guys? Maybe type in yes if you can feel this. I know some of you might not be able to because you're not at your computer, but definitely noticing where maybe success, maybe money, maybe fame, or getting likes on a post, or having people show up to a webinar or something like that. Maybe you're feeling that is attached to your worthiness, right? Attached to your level of feeling enough, attached to your level of importance or significance. I've done it all the time in the past, even here. Starting this call, not many people were turning up live. I had a lot of messages with people just before this, like 4 or 5 people say, I can't make it today. And I noticed myself separating myself and saying, and delegating that to the universe and saying, what's happening here is meant to happen. What's happening here is meant to happen. Now more people are starting to trickle in, which is awesome. Welcome, Stephen. Also, Hannah, good to see you. So can you notice this? Andrew says yes, Hannah says yes. Noticing where you are placing your importance. Is your importance on something happening out there? Or is your importance, your significance, your level of love and abundance, are you feeling it in here? Right? Are you feeling it in here? One thing that I've had huge breakthroughs in this is when I'm talking to someone, actually feeling so connected with them. right? Feeling so connected, feeling like we're the same consciousness, feeling there. We're basically so connected that it doesn't matter how much money, fame, significance, what their size of their audience or list is. Like, to me right now, I'm just like, who the hell cares? This is an infinite soul, an infinite person with infinite creativity, infinite abundance. And every single time I feel myself being pulled by, oh my God, if I was only to have this, if only I was to have 100 people on these calls, I would feel more significant. I would feel more worthy. I would feel enough, right? I can notice that ego. I can notice it. And so the beautiful thing about this is when you start to notice your ego, when you start catching yourself and paying attention to it, it actually starts dissolving. It actually starts dissolving because ego is unconscious. Bring it to your conscious awareness is death to the ego, right? It's death to the ego. So for example, so like we had two people show up. So Pam showed up live here. Then we had Andrea show up, and we were talking about Andrea and how awesome she is. She's doing my the logo, the logo for my the podcast I'm launching in the next day or so. And I could have felt my ego saying, "Oh my God, there's only two people here," right? And I could have felt myself being caught by that. By just observing that, by observing my ego, by seeing that I'm being caught there, allows the ego to dissolve. And I can just be here. I can just be here. Andrea says, I think one of the hardest things is not to contribute self-worth success with how people respond to you. It's something I've had to remind myself all the time. Exactly. Some people have the identification. Let me take a sip of my tea. This is what we found. This is what I found by reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Awesome book. Man, if people have that book, read it again. If you don't have it, you have to get it. It is a crazy, crazy book. And what's arising, and even in the works of Wayne Dyer, all these awesome people, you'll notice that when we grow up, we start identifying with our toys. Who I am is my toys. So if you take away my toy, all of a sudden I'm going to feel like you're taking a part of me. But it's not a part of you, right? That's why after it's gone for a while or a day or so, you move on to another toy, right? But you attach yourself to those things. The ego attaches your worthiness and thinks who you are is the stuff you have, right? As we grow up, that just evolves to your money, your status, your career, your relationships, your house, your car, whatever it may be. You start identifying with that and you place your worthiness on that, right? Which is why when it's hard to take a leap, when you're leaping in your business from a career into entrepreneurship or taking a leap even in your business, you can feel this strain if there is a financial risk or a risk of who you are, or like Andrea is saying, a risk of how other people see you, right? Because that's where you catch yourself. That's where you can start catching yourself, because your ego is not your things. Your ego is just, it's a false belief. It's unconscious. It's forgetting that you're infinite. And that's why meditation is so powerful, especially if you meditate in silence for about 35 minutes. I found that's like breaking up with your ego. Kyle Cease talks about this all the time. It's almost like that first 45 minutes, it's like you're breaking up with your ego. You're breaking up with those identifications of who you thought you were and what stories you thought were true and those things you thought need to happen in order for you to feel safe and secure. You're breaking up with like Andrew's saying, stories of how other people see you. And you start accessing the fact that you are actually infinite. And all of that is just a story. And what's true is here in this moment, when you take a breath, when you feel your body, when you feel your heart beating, brings you back to the present moment. This is all we have, and this is all that's true. What's true, you're connected with everything. Everything's energy. What's true is anything's possible. So how other people respond to you, like Andrew's saying, it's beautiful. How other people will respond to you is a mirror of what you need to look in yourself. It really is. It can be hard for the ego to know that at times. It can be like, it's not me, it's them. What happens when they do this? But when you meditate, you realize it's always you. Always. It's always, the universe is beautiful. It's just allowing you to see what you need to look in yourself every single time. So let's take a breath at the moment. Let's start to notice this. The more you breathe, the more you pay attention to your physical body, the more you're just brought back to this present moment. So just feel that. Feel your breath. Feel each breath going in and out. Notice how you're not like, the more breath I get, the more worthy I am. Notice that you're not like, as soon as I breathe out air, I feel like I'm not enough. There's an infinite amount of oxygen. It's abundant. It's the same as everything. This world is abundant. But feel your body. Just breathe, just feel. The more you feel this, the more you can be in the present moment, the more you can start to notice where you've been in resistance. The more awareness you have. Where are you in resistance? One thing I did I recorded the first episode of the podcast yesterday, and that's the number one thing I wanted to pass across. Gaining awareness as to where you are in resistance, where you think life should be a different way, where you think this needs to be different in order for me to feel a certain way. Just notice. You may have noticed some patterns throughout today, throughout this week. Where have you noticed that something needs to be different? You're carrying the story like something needs to be different in order for you to feel enough, in order for you to feel safe, in order for you to feel happy, in order for you to feel more peace, more freedom. Is it make more money? Is it get rid of that person? Is it get more clients? Is it leave that thing? Is it get this thing? Pay attention to your body, feel, breathe. Notice the energy system that's circulating through your body. Notice that thing that's beating your heart. Start to notice you can drop the resistance. You can drop resistance. You can drop judgment, and you can observe those patterns. You can observe those patterns. You can observe those stories. Notice the ego, notice where you're in resistance, and notice that pattern. See that pattern. See that pattern of resistance. See that story. See the 5-year-old within you that has fear around it, that has doubt around it. This will transform it for you. It'll transform the relationship you have with it. So continue to breathe, continue to feel, and then notice what happens when you delegate all of that to the universe. What would life be like if you approach circumstances, situations, events where you just were not attached to what the outcome was? What if you were not attached to the outcome? What if you made an offer to someone if you made an offer for your business that would mean a lot of money for you, and you just were simply not attached to whether they said yes or no? You were just not attached to if they said yes or no. And you knew they're like, what the answer is outside my control. What the answer is not up to me. It's up to me to stay in flow, me to stay connected. It's up for me to be in a space of aliveness, right? A flow. As long as you stay in flow, as long as you're there staying in flow, you're in alignment, the world will respond. And the world will either give you the mirror of what you're feeling in here, or will give you the lessons that are necessary for you to become who you're meant to become. So feel that. As you breathe, feel that. Feel that life has got you. Life has your back. The universe has your back. When I left my job, that's the only faith I had. The only faith I had. I was not making much money in the job, and I wasn't making much money in the coaching business. But I left my job from my heartfelt leap, and this was my guidance, saying no matter what happens, I'm either going to get the lessons that I need for me to become who I'm meant to become, or the internal reflection of my leap is going to manifest itself externally. And the freedom I feel in here is going to be manifested to a freedom out here. Because as you focus in, you'll start to notice that you actually have no idea whether what's happening out there is good or bad. There is no good or bad in the universe. There is no good or bad. That may be challenging for some people to hear. It may be challenging to a story that says, I need to know if something's good or bad. But who are we to say what should or shouldn't happen? As Byron Katie says, she says, who needs God when I have my opinion? Right? Who needs God or a higher guidance system when I know what's right for the universe? That's your ego. Your ego thinks something should happen. Your ego thinks something's good or bad. When you focus on here and you feel connected and one with everything, and you notice the ego, you start seeing that you have no clue what's good or bad. You have no clue what's going to lead to a opportunity for you, or a lesson that you need to learn, or something that's going to come your way that you have no clue, right? So feel that. No matter what happens, the universe has your back. What happens out there in the external world is not up to you. Delegate that. Delegate the results. Detach yourself from what happens and just live in here. Internal freedom. That's all that matters. Internal freedom. Internal connectedness. What would your life be like? Moving forward for your business, for your personal relationships, friendships, if you were not attached to what was happening out there and you were just focusing on what's in here, connecting with yourself at deeper levels, loving those 5-year-olds, heightening your level of consciousness, taking leaps from here with courage. I'm excited to start this podcast because I'm going to have episodes in there that remind you of these day in, day out. And it's not just going to be intellectual content. It's going to be doing these deeper exercises and throughout the day reminding you to focus on in here so you can actually transform, so you can actually become more aware rather than just something you learn. So if any of you guys have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. More than happy to see what came up for you, what's coming up for you at the moment, what you're noticing, Any questions? If anyone wants to come on and have a chat with me, I'm more than happy for that. What Andrew is saying is important as well. It's the opinions of other people. It's definitely the opinions of other people that hold a lot of people back. I just got on a few phone calls, and the amount of times I noticed that people just have this, the fear of judgment, the fear of what other people think, makes them hold in their truth. Really makes them hold in their truth, which is something that will eat away at you until you do. Really will eat away at you until you actually release your truth. Super important. So if no one has any questions, that's okay. That's cool. This might be a shorter call, but this will mean the world for you to just gain some awareness as to where you notice this ego, notice where you're in resistance. And every single time you ask that question, you'll just go deeper. For example, I can see, if I'm in resistance to, if I'm in resistance to my bank account, right? I have a certain amount of money in the bank account. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, it should be more, right? It should be higher. I should be further along than this. And then I notice that. I notice I'm in resistance to what is. This dollar figure's in my bank account and I'm in resistance to that. So I sit back and I observe it. I observe that resistance, right? And the more I observe it, the more I'm like, I'm not accepting that. I'm not accepting that. I'm not welcoming that. I'm not loving what is. And therefore I'm like, okay, cool. So therefore, when I go out and talk to clients, or I talk to, or I talk to you guys, I talk to an audience, I talk to someone who's interested in signing up into the coaching program, I've dropped that resistance. I've dropped that neediness. And people can start feeling my internal freedom. And the action you take from that place is so much more creative and in flow. A lot of people think that if they don't have that resistance, or don't have that need to change something, that they're going to lose their drive. And what you may find is the exact opposite happens. The exact opposite happens, except your action will be from creativity and flow and alignment rather than a push from fear. Right? So if you recognize the world as it is, and you accept the world as it is, then you're in more of a place to change it. Can you see that? You're in more of a place to change it. Similar to the 5-year-olds that are coming up within us. What do? We stop the resistance. We stop the judgment. And when that happens, that 5-year-old will transcend in their own time. It's similar to external circumstances. If you are trying to make more money or trying to find more success in business, what do you think is going to be your best result? Is it operating from a place of fear, saying this needs to change, therefore you're in fight and flight the whole time, right? That's like trying to work on your business while there's a tiger in the room. How much creative flow are you going to have while that's going on in your body? It's just not going to happen, right? It may happen here and there. You may find the right tool or strategy that can work, but it's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable place to be from, right? But if you accept your bank account, if you come from a place of acceptance and love and allowance, right? You allow it to be there. You drop the resistance. How much more creative flow are you going to have? How much more are you going to feel free and feel safe for things to come to you? How safe will people feel to sign up for your program or your coaching or your services when they can feel that you don't need them to feel enough, to feel safe, to feel secure when you're trying to get a bigger bank account. They can feel when you're there for their results, right? When you're there for their results and it's bigger than money because you feel like you don't need more in order to feel safe, it is a different level. So when you love your bank account, when you love the whatever dollar figures in there, and you don't have that resistance, you're in so much creative flow and alignment to actually make more money. So Stephen, I'm in resistance to my concentration. I lack concentration. I'm aware of it, but my awareness disappears when I land up moving into my next direction. Next distraction. When I end up moving to my next distraction. Yeah, cool. So you feel like you should have more concentration. That's awesome level of awareness. You can feel and you can notice, you're like, I think I need more concentration. Right? And you say my awareness disappears whenever you get into your next distraction. That's okay too. You can also be unconscious to that. That's also important. You can also notice that. What matters most is that you're starting to be more and more aware of it. Right? Just because something dissipates. So for example, if I have fear around a leap, around business. So when I left my job to do full-time coaching, that was a scary decision. But as soon as I leapt, the fear dropped because I was jumping into the opportunity, right? So whenever you are about to leap, you have the opportunity and you have the fear. If you live to the fear, your opportunity will drop. If you take the opportunity, your fear will drop. So I leapt and the fear dropped, but every now and then the fear will come up because it's like it's dissolving. Doesn't mean it's gone. Doesn't mean I don't have a survival side. It just means it's not as loud. It means it's dissolving. So it'll come up and then I'll feel it again. It'll come up here and there and I'll feel it again. Love that 5-year-old. It'll come up again, I'll feel it more. Right, until eventually the opportunity, the love, the freedom, the joy is just clearly a bigger voice in my head. It's clearly my heart's resonating from that place and operating from that place rather than the fear. Sort of seemed like with you, Stephen, you've got a level of awareness that says, I'm in resistance to my amount of concentration. I feel like I need more concentration. And so that's in resistance to what is. But then you go and you get into another distraction and you forget that, right? That's okay too. That is completely fine. That is, that's part of your journey, right? There's a bigger lesson here. And so what you'll find is you'll just start becoming more and more aware of it, right? You can probably feel that now. You can probably feel that in your body. You don't need to be concentrating the whole time, right? Imagine if you were concentrating on something the whole time, 24/7. You'd go crazy. So that's awesome, guys. So hopefully this has raised some awareness. I know you'll see some very similar themes as to what's going on here in all of these calls, but you can sense you just go deeper. The more you become aware, the more you just go deeper. I ask myself basically the same questions all day, every day. And every single time they provide answers. That's why when I sit in silence for 2 hours a day, I'm not getting the same insights, right? I'm just going deeper. It's powerful. And same with these sort of questions, same with these sort of focus points that you guys are starting to become aware of. And you just go deeper every single time. So Stephen says, it's what you told me. Now I'm grateful for the reminder. You're welcome, Stephen. Andrea, written a bit of a novel here. Awesome. It's also got to be one of the hardest things when I need to concentrate and think about concentrating, then concentrating is all I'm thinking about instead of the actual thing that I need to be concentrating on. Oh, how good is that? And then poof, and somehow I'm working on something completely random, completely forgetting that I was supposed to be working on that. Love it. Love it. That's so cool. Yeah, it's sort of just how good is that? It's like what is life trying to teach me right now? What is life trying to teach me? Right? Because when you're in flow, when you're doing what your heart pulls you to do, how focused do you feel? How concentrated do you feel? You're in flow, right? If you're being distracted by a few things here and there, and you're checking your phone and you're doing this, you might want to ask yourself, is that task your highest alignment? Right? Is that task your highest alignment? And what could you be doing that puts you in flow, that puts you in your heart, on your heart's edge? Right? But man, it's a good level of awareness, because sometimes I'm here and I'm like doing something and me too, I'm like, oh, I should be doing this. I should be feeling this. I should be more concentrated. I should be more focused. I should whatever. And catching that resistance. Noticing where I think things should be different. Where is it that you think something should be different? Right? Maybe Stephen and Andrew, you guys can be a little a team partnership. You can have a conversation and be completely concentrating on that conversation. Beautiful, guys. Today was a prime example. I was reading for this session, and before I knew it, it was 10:15. Yeah. I was on time. And beautiful. Sometimes you can get lost in something, but that means you're in flow, right? Maybe sometimes you're doing something and time just stands still. Time just doesn't even matter, and you're just in it. You're doing it. That's awesome as well. Go, Stephen. What's your question? Yeah, let's talk. Stephen's got a question. Just be 1 second. Stephen, I'll promote you to panelist. Maybe I can allow you to talk. I've never used this button before. Stephen.
Working.
How are you, my friend?
Okay, morning everybody. Hi, thanks, Tyce. I've been struggling with meditation because it just becomes a jumble of thoughts as opposed to digging deep. And
Okay,
my mind's wandering all over, and you said that's fine if you're allowed to do it. But something happened the other day. My daughter said to me, if I tell you to picture a star in your mind, what do you see? And then she said, picture a house, what do you see? And then she showed me a photograph of what people see. And I said, well, that's not what I see. I don't really see anything. And she said, she's the same. She also doesn't see anything. So I was wondering if part of our brain doesn't allow us to get to that creative picture a star scenario that might be inhibiting my meditation abilities, because I can't picture what I'm, if you tell me, think of something in your head, what does it look like? And it's almost to me like a blank canvas and maybe an outline, but nothing else. So do you think it's a shortcoming, or can you still practice on
it may be something that's outside my expertise, something that I'm not familiar with. But what I can offer is the story that I'm struggling with meditation as well. There's resistance there that says my meditation should be different than what it is right now. So that, in terms of the way the brain works, in terms of the way I struggle with visualizing, and if someone tells me all I see is a blank canvas and maybe an outline, that may be outside of my level of knowledge. But what I can offer is, can you notice where you're also in resistance and telling yourself a particular story, like, I'm trying to go deeper, but I'm only getting here, or my meditation needs to be doing this and it's doing that, or I'm sitting here and I just have jumbled thoughts and it should be calm. Can you sort of notice where there may be a resistance there?
Yeah, when you point it out like that, it makes sense that I would be in resistance, because I get to the point with the meditation, like I've been doing it for a while since we challenged each other. First thing in the morning, leave the phone and I say, okay, dig deep. What's the 5-year-old? What am I feeling inside me? And I start feeling it to my solar plexus where I normally get it. And I say, oh, what is that emotion? Why are you uncomfortable? And then I'm start thinking of my day and I start thinking of everything else. I don't allow myself to get into that.
Yeah.
Bring out the 5-year-old. And I don't know if it's resistance or it's just inability.
Yeah. One thing that I know, so we might need to dive in deeper into this with each other, but one thing I know is you're never not doing it right. I mean, you're never not doing it wrong. So, for example, when you sit down and sit down with yourself, you're never not doing it wrong. So
Yeah.
there's some things that are happening when you sit down in silence that your conscious mind can't see, your egoic mind can't see. What often happens when I sit down or when someone sits down is sometimes you can have a judgment or a condition that says, when I sit down, I'm meant to go deep and I'm meant to feel great and I'm meant to relax. My mind's meant to do this. And after it, I'm meant to feel clear. I'm meant to feel alive. I'm meant to feel whatever. And it's just not the way. It's just not the way it works. A really cool example or metaphor is if you're working on a car, for example, and you lift the bonnet and you're starting to work on the motor. If you're with someone and you're both working on the motor, um, you can't see that there's 4 other people also working on the tires. Right? If they're fixing the tires, fixing everything there. I don't know cars. I don't know. I use this example, but they're fixing the tires, but you can't see that the tires are being fixed because you're focused on the motor, right? And it's very similar in meditation. When you sit there and you sit in silence, your mind can do whatever, your body can do whatever, but what's happening internally is outside your awareness. It can be outside your awareness. It can be unconscious, because you may have not reacted to something throughout that day that you may have reacted to if you didn't meditate, for example, right? You wouldn't be able to recognize that because it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Or when you sit down and meditate, you can be doing you can be challenging your stories around what you think you should be doing. So, for example, you may have detached yourself to the fact you think you should be hustling or doing something different, right? Or focusing on what you do. That's the story you're breaking away by just sitting down and meditating, but you don't actually consciously recognize it. So there's many things in meditation. When you sit down in silence and you be the observer of your thoughts and your emotions, there are many things that occur that we're not aware of, because what we want to happen is only by our mind. What our mind thinks should happen, but it's happening at a lot deeper level than what our mind can see, right? At our unconscious level, out with our heart, our spirit, our connectedness. It's just happening at such a deeper level that you're not even aware of it. Does that make sense?
It does. And I guess it's what I am going through, because the subconscious is doing its own thing that I'm not aware of, and I'm trying to create more awareness through all my learnings, and also trying to learn to get to that stage where I let go of the meditator.
Mm.
You're not trying to control the meditation.
Yes. Yeah. And if you can not control the meditation, you can extend that to not controlling any outcome.
Yeah.
in your life, any outcome in your life, delegate that. Delegate that to the universe, right? Because it took me a while as well to really separate myself and say, I'm not going to have any expectations to this meditation. I'm just going to sit here. Sometimes I'm observing my thoughts going crazy for an hour. I'm like, awesome. My mind can't see what benefit that had, right? My mind can't see. My mind's like, you just observed your thoughts going crazy for an hour or an hour and a half. And I wake up, I'm like, and then I come out of that and I'm like, I feel worse. I feel crap. I feel confused. I feel like I'm out of control. And then I remind myself, I'm like, it's always working. It's always doing benefit when you sit down and observe those things. Always. It's just you're trying to comprehend what the benefit was by using this small mind, right? When you're infinite, you're everything. And your mind's trying to see what the benefit was. It won't work that way, right? And even if your mind can see a benefit, it can't see all of the benefit.
When the first thing in the morning, you don't really want to go into a negative space and remind yourself of negative things. But if you're accessing the 5-year-old and allowing and loving it, then that's a good thing. It's not a negative.
It's not negative. Nothing's negative. Nothing's negative. Negative is just by what your mind thinks it is. If your mind thinks it's negative, then that's what your ego thinks, but it doesn't make it true. So for example, if I sit down in meditation like I described and I feel confused, then for the rest of the day I feel confused, or the rest of the day I feel uncertainty, my mind says you shouldn't feel uncertainty. It's uncomfortable. But my heart says this is something you need to feel, and you could feel it for 5 days straight, and that'll be a beautiful thing, right? Sure. Even just, there may also be some stories that are yet to be uncovered that say you can detach yourself from what emotions are good or bad, right? So
they're neither good nor bad. They're just emotions, and it's the thoughts that we put to them.
Yes.
It's good or bad.
Yeah. Like there's so many times where I've just felt uncomfortable throughout the day, especially when I'm taking my leaps, leaving my job or doing something in business, or shifting a particular level of sadness around past relationships. I'll feel this sadness come up in meditation. And I'm just like, I'm willing to carry this around all day, every day, for as long as it takes. I just have to feel it. And it's not my job to move it on or do anything with it. It's just my job to feel it. And I delegate that to the universe. I delegate that to my unconscious mind to say, it's going to move on when it's meant to, right? It's going to move on when it's meant to. I don't know when that is. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm just dropping all of the resistance to say it should be this way. I should be feeling this way and it should leave at this time. I just drop all the resistance, and it's my job to just connect with myself and to just feel and to just love and to drop the judgment. And because I was able to do that, I was also able to do that with my leap for my job and delegate that to the universe and say, it's not my job to figure out the how. It's not my job to make money. It's not my job to, it's not my job to be in a space of safety and know what's going to happen. Delegate that. It's my job to be in here. It's my job to do this. And it's my job to take the lessons that I'm meant to learn or receive the opportunities that I receive because of that leap.
Yeah.
How long are your meditations?
Tend to be going about a half an hour.
Okay, great. Do you think is it your expansion to extend those?
Is it my intention?
Does it feel an expansion to go for an hour, for example?
Not yet, because of the time I'm doing it, and then the house comes alive. So maybe if I'm getting up earlier.
But that's a circumstance.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about circumstances. That's your mind trying to say, how can I fit this into my day? Yeah. Would it feel alive in here? Would it feel an expansion? Would it break away some stories that you have if you were to sit down for an hour?
I'd be exploring a lot more and a lot deeper, I guess. Well, not I guess, I know.
Because I find, like I said, it takes normally about 40 minutes to really start breaking away a lot of those stories. Because the more you extend it, the more stories you'll break away. For example, I meditated the other day. It was probably for about 3.5 hours, and it wasn't straight, but in 3.5 hours during the day, and I could catch myself later on in the meditations being like, okay, you've had enough. And that's when I know I need to keep going. I'm like, I wonder what's on the other side of this. I wonder what's on the other side of this. And I broke away that story, and then I accessed a deeper side of me.
What
Right?
stops people? Fear of digging too deep and bringing out what you don't want to come out?
Can you notice the resistance in that?
Yeah.
That's huge. It's
So
like,
it's
I'm
easy to
scared of what's
track.
coming up.
Yeah.
And you got to think, I remember telling myself this as well. I'm like, how sustainable is your life, your relationships, the decisions, your moods, your business, if you're scared of a side of you, right? If I'm scared of a side of me and I can't sit down in silence, like, that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So that's a beautiful awareness, is to be like, I'm scared of what's coming up. Love that. Love that realization. Love that fear. Love that doubt. Right? And then go deeper. And just, it's important to notice whatever's emerging is trying to leave. Whatever's emerging is trying to leave. And when you are in resistance to it and saying, I can't feel this, you push it back down.
Yeah. Back to the resistance.
Yes. But when you welcome it, knowing that you're not the emotion, you're the observer of the emotion, and knowing that it's trying to emerge so it will leave, that is when you're able to just be the loving space for it. Just be the loving space for any emotion to come up. Man, I was like crying when I was feeling this sadness towards for past relationships and all those different things. I was crying. I was feeling all this pain. And I'm just like, observe it, be there, feel it fully. I'm the observer of it. I'm holding a space for it to be there. And as soon as that left, more came up. Right? That's why I love you guys, because you're willing to do this work. You're willing to do what no one else is on the planet is doing. It's to face your inner darkness. It's to face those patterns, knowing they're not bad, they're not evil, they're not wrong. They're just parts of you that are ready to transcend. They're parts of you that are ready to leave. Another way of explaining that is, everything that's trying to leave is not you. Everything that's not you is trying to die. And that's why if you don't face it, you will always be reminded of it in the external circumstances. Life will always present that to you until you face that, until you face it internally, right? If you feel insecure and you don't feel that, life will always give you circumstances that make you feel insecure until you look at that 5-year-old and allow it to leave.
Do you
Same
physically
thing.
allow it to leave, or are you embracing it and loving it and allowing it to be there?
Yeah, it's the same thing. If you allow it to be there, it'll leave in its own time.
Okay.
It's not your job to make it leave. It's not your job to know when it's going to leave. It's not your job, to move it on. But it's your job to just love it, and the universe will move that on. Right? Your unconscious mind will move that on in its own time. You don't know when, and that's okay. It's your job to feel it, and it will move on in its own time, because fear cannot exist in a space where it's seen, where it's actually seen without resistance, where it's actually loved unconditionally. It can't hold that space. It can't exist in that space, right? For how long it stays in that space is not up to you. It could be 30 seconds, 90 seconds, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 months. Who the hell knows? Who the hell cares? You're transcending a pattern, right? You're doing it from a place of courage, right? People can notice the courage in Stephen. He's like, oh, I know I'm scared to face these patterns. I know what's emerging is scary to me. That's courage. It's like, I'm willing to feel this. I'm willing to embrace what's emerging and coming up so that I can transcend them, so I can see who I am on the other side of that, right? What else is coming up for you? Do you have any other questions?
No, it's just the discipline of putting it into practice and extending meditation, and not creating a reason to resist.
Yeah.
Stick through it.
Yeah. And it's just, you'll notice it's not a, it's less a matter of what to do. It's more of a matter of what not to do. It's more of just sitting, just allowing, doing less. Doing less is more, right? Doing less is more. Just sit there, observe, wait, be patient, drop resistance and judgment, and yeah, accessing a deeper side. If it feels an expansion to go for an hour, then go for an hour and see what comes up. And the reason why you're being called to do this is because you're not those emotions. Whatever emerges is not your emotion, is not you.
Yes.
It's just the emotion you're able to notice. And if it emerges, that means it's ready to leave. If it emerges, that means you've already opened a safe enough space for it to be seen, for it to be shown. Right?
Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Awesome. Thanks for jumping on. So that's awesome, guys. So everyone, I know everyone needs to leave now. We've passed the hour, but man, how powerful is this? The more we open up this level of awareness, the more we're able to see these, where we're in resistance, where our ego is, we just go deeper, right? You can probably listen to a call that was, a couple of weeks ago, and I've been talking about the exact same thing, yet you had a completely different realization here, completely different shift, completely different level of awareness. And that's because these questions can always be asked. And that's what I'm excited to consistently do in different episodes with the podcast as well. So thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it.